All right, to continue today the conversation, we have a Congress leader, and in Congress leader interview, this is with Congressman Mike Levin. The interview is presented by Kirk Whisler. Let me go ahead and introduce them here.
Congressman Mike Levin represents California's 49th congressional district, which includes North County, San Diego, and South Orange County. Currently serving his second term in the House of Representatives, Levin sits on the House Committee on Natural Resources, the House Select Committee on the Climate Crisis, and the House Committee on Veterans Affairs, where he serves as Vice Chair of the committee and Chair of the Subcommittee on Economic Opportunity. Levin was raised in South Orange County. He went on to study at Stanford University and later attended Duke University School of Law. Prior to being elected to Congress in 2018, Levin fought for climate action while working as an environmental attorney. He also served on the board of the Center for Sustainable Energy and co-founded Sustain OC, helping accelerate the transition toward more sustainable power generation and transportation alternatives. Throughout his career, Levin has been a passionate leader on environmental protection, clean energy, and combating climate change.
Interviewing him is Kirk Whisler. He is the board president of Empowering Latino Futures, which is the organization that puts together this event, and also the publisher with WPR Books, Western Publication Research. All right, let's get started.
Well, we are honored to be here today with Congressman Mike Levin, who's been representing North San Diego County for a while, and we hope a lot longer. And first of all, I wanted to spend just a minute and give you a little bit of background on Empowering Latino Futures. We were founded in 1997 by Edward James Olmos and myself because we saw there was voids within community programs serving the Latino community. Our very first program was the Latino Book and Family Festivals that we've now held 69 of them around the United States, combined attendance of over 90,000. We started the next year the International Latino Book Awards, and we've now honored 3,470 authors in 105 categories. And we also do the National Latino and American Indian Scholarship Directory that has just under $1 billion in resources and has been used by 182,000 students across the US. My background, I was the founding president of the National Association of Hispanic Publications, newspapers and magazines back in 1982. And so we work closely with Latino newspapers and magazines from across the US in everything that we do. And then also just serving North County with our Education Begins in the Home, we've distributed over 160,000 books to underserved kids. And that was started by Edward Becerra when he found that a lot of low-income households had not a single book in the house. And so it motivated him to get out there and work on that. But we're honored to be working with you on all of these.
Well, honored to be working with you too, Kirk, and I want to congratulate you on that impressive history and all you're doing for the community. That's a really remarkable work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. What is your vision for North San Diego County?
Well, thank you again for having me, and perhaps I think it'd be important to know a bit about my background, because it's important as it informs my vision as a representative and what I hope to accomplish. You probably would not know from my last name or from looking at me, but my mom is Mexican American, and my mom's parents came from Mexico when they were very young. My grandmother was about 4 or 5 years old. My grandfather was 12 years old. And they came from my grandpa from Culiacan, my grandmother from Durango. They went to Texas, through Texas. My grandma and her family lived in El Paso for a number of years, eventually made their way through Arizona, and then to Los Angeles, where my grandpa and grandma got married, and they wound up having 5 girls, including my mom. And they started a successful small business, my grandma and grandpa and my grandfather's 2 brothers, called Bringus Brothers Jukebox Company, or Bringus Brothers Music Company, back when the Wurlitzer was a thing and people were still using jukeboxes all over. And my grandpa was very lucky that he was able to become a distributor for Wurlitzer in the Western United States. And he believed very strongly that if you worked really hard in the United States, that there'd be a better future for him and for his family and for his eventually his grandkids. And I think he would be really honored that his youngest grandson, that's me, became a member of the House of Representatives. So I'm a proud member of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, having one parent who's Mexican-American, the other who is not. My dad is Jewish and his family is from Eastern Europe. But isn't that the beauty of America, where you have somebody with that diversity of background, where, working hard and doing well really was the vision and the dream that my grandfather believed in, and that, ultimately led to him becoming an American citizen at age 50. And for him, it was, the proudest day of his life. I know that very well. I think that my hope in Congress is that we can keep that kind of dream alive, that America can continue to represent that beacon of opportunity and hopefulness and a better life for immigrants. And I think we have to remember that immigration strengthens us when we consider the participation and the country that we have today, and the contributions of immigrants of every type. But I'm particularly proud of the contributions of the Hispanic and Latino community and Mexican American community. And I know that that's felt all throughout San Diego County. And for me, making sure we have immigration policies that are respectful, obviously, of safety, but also treat people with humanity and dignity, treat people as human beings. That's so critically important to me. My background also is as an environmental attorney. So I worked as a clean energy advocate and worked on a lot of renewable energy projects and things of that nature. And when I got to Congress, I knew that I wanted to try to make an impact on the climate crisis. My wife and I, we have 2 young children, 9 and 7 years old, and I want for them to have a planet that they can live in and thrive in, and that certainly includes our beautiful communities, our coastal communities, where for us, and you know this, climate change is not theoretical for us anymore. We see it, we live it, we experience it, whether it's the year-round wildfires or the smoke that's caused from them, or the droughts, or the coastal erosion and bluff collapses. You name it, we are seeing it in San Diego, particularly along the coasts of San Diego. And my district, as you may know, goes all the way up to Dana Point and all the way down to UCSD. And we have to make sure that we protect our beaches, protect our coastline, and do all we can to reduce our greenhouse gas footprint. So in terms of my vision for North County, it's trying to represent the values of our communities, trying to do all I can to help the average person to get by and to improve the quality of their life. And again, to uphold the dignity of everyone in our community. And I know there's so much more that brings us together than separates it. So I hope that collectively we can turn down the temperature a little bit and remember what brings us all together.
Well, thank you very much, Congressman. And I know while others in Congress care about global warming and climate change, very few had the detailed background that you had prior to going into Congress. So that's a real asset. Plus, I want to commend you for your involvement with the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, because that is certainly a key issue here in North County.
Well, thank you, Kirk. And it's a very exciting time right now with the president's Build Back Better agenda. We are moving ever closer to getting it across the finish line. And I'll be off to Glasgow, Scotland for the COP26 climate conference with a congressional delegation next week. And my sincere hope is that we will have passed both the bipartisan infrastructure framework and the Build Back Better Act in the House, so that when we go to the international community next week and we try to lead on issues of climate, we try to lead by example. And when we're there, if we have these bills passed in the House, I think that'll be a huge wind at our back as we go to try to convince the international community that we can protect the environment and grow the economy at the same time, while treating people with equality and decency, as we believe as Americans. That's what makes us America, is treating people with respect and dignity.
Excellent. What motivated you to switch from a legal career to a career of public service?
Well, I think in the wake of the 2016 election, really thinking about the type of future that my children would have in the United States, we ultimately need to protect this planet. So thinking a lot about the climate policies of the last administration, the environmental policies of the last administration, versus what I think we need, which is to figure out how we're going to reduce our emissions, whether it be from the movement of people or the movement of goods, the way we build buildings, the way we generate electricity, the way we grow food. We have to think it all through and dramatically reduce our greenhouse gas footprint, along with emissions of things like methane and other short-lived climate pollutants. So thinking about the future my kids are going to someday, and their kids are going to someday inherit, and then thinking about the strength of our democracy and our democratic institutions, knowing that in my mind, the last president did need a check on how he was operating. And I think that we did that after the 2018 election. Now, of course, it's working very hard with the new administration on this Build Back Better agenda, trying to do all we can on climate, all we can on healthcare and childcare, and also getting the hard infrastructure, the roads, bridges, water, broadband, all of that across the finish line as well, helping get our economy back on track to full employment. It's been a very, very tough 18 months with COVID. We've all lived and experienced a very difficult period, really unprecedented in modern American history, with a public health crisis and an economic crisis directly related to the pandemic, the likes of which we have not seen in our lifetimes. And we have to be prepared for the bumpy ride that is created in terms of our economic recovery. But I think that the policies that we're putting forth right now will get us on track to full employment. I do think that my hope by the end of next year, we'll be back to where we were in terms of the employment situation. And also that some of the near-term things we're seeing, like inflation and supply chain issues, that those will be transitory in nature, and that we'll get back on track and have a much better 2022.
What are some of the federal programs specifically benefiting North County Latinos?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think if you look at the Build Back Better Act itself, that you can break it down into three buckets. So climate, healthcare, childcare. So for climate, there's $555 billion in the legislation, and it impacts everybody, not just the Latino community. But if you're interested in putting solar on your roof, or buying an electric vehicle for your next vehicle, or if you have a business and you're thinking about alternative power generation, it will dramatically improve the economics of those decisions. For example, for electric vehicles, a $12,500 rebate for your next vehicle purchase, just as one example. When it comes to our childcare and our children, the Build Back Better Act says that if you make under $300,000 a year, that childcare will not cost any more than 7% of your income, which is a huge, huge deal. We know a lot of people want to go back into the workforce, but childcare has been a significant hurdle in that regard. Also, the further extension of the child tax credit, you might know, as part of the American Rescue Plan, parents have been receiving a monthly check. Those checks will continue for another year. And then I'm really excited about this, Kirk. For the first time in American history, we will have universal preschool for 3 and 4-year-olds because of the Build Back Better Act. We know that when we invest in children, that there are long-term dividends up to a 7-to-1 is what I've seen from independent economic analysis, that when you invest in a child, when you invest in early childhood education, when you make sure they have enough to eat, that's the other thing. I have my Stop Child Hunger Act, a version of which was included in the Build Back Better Act, which provides a summer EBT card, a summer debit card, so that when children are not in school, that their parents can get some supplemental funding to help their children have enough to eat during those summer months and during the breaks. So that's everything with regard to children. Then with regard to healthcare, major provisions to expand upon the Affordable Care Act to make sure that the Affordable Care Act premiums are as inexpensive as possible for everybody that wants to sign up. And I would highly encourage anybody watching this, if they don't have health insurance or they're interested in Covered California, which is our state exchange, go to coveredca.com and you might be able to get health insurance for basically for no monthly premium. And highly encourage that. So all of the above in the Build Back Better Act, and then in the bipartisan infrastructure bill, again, our roads, our bridges, our water infrastructure, our broadband. We saw during the pandemic just how many students did not have high-speed internet. Very tough to work from home or study from home if you don't have high-speed internet. And the bipartisan infrastructure bill goes a long way towards filling the gap for people that do not have high-speed internet. And then water is so critically important in Southern California. When we built our metropolis, we did not have a permanent supply of drinking water. And what the Build Back Better Act and the bipartisan infrastructure bill do is they invest very heavily in water recycling and water desalination, two things that I believe in very strongly that we've led on in North County. But these bills, this funding will go a long way to help us redouble our efforts on water supply, resiliency, and diversity.
Excellent, excellent. Why do you feel COVID vaccine rates overall, and specifically for Latinos, are dramatically lower in North San Diego County than in South San Diego cities and elsewhere?
Well, it's definitely been a disappointment to me, Kirk, because it's very, very simple. The vaccines work and they're free and they're available just about everywhere. So if even one person who is watching this has not been vaccinated, please get vaccinated. They are safe, they are effective, and they are the best way that we could keep COVID at bay. A lot of people talk about freedom. I like freedom from COVID. That's what I want, freedom from COVID. And the easiest way to do that is if we get vaccinated. Now, in terms of the discrepancy between North County and South County, I can tell you that it isn't for a lack of effort from our friends, whether it be the community clinics, like Vista Community Clinic or True Care. They are working overtime and they are trying very, very hard. But I do think to an extent, it's because of the decentralized nature of North County. You've got a lot of different jurisdictions, different cities and so forth. But I can guarantee you that that piece in the UT definitely opened a lot of eyes, and they're going to redouble their efforts at the county and do everything they can to get everybody vaccinated as quickly as they can. Excellent,
excellent. Once we get past COVID, past the bills being the current bills in the House and Senate, all that gets resolved, what would be your key goals related to the Latino community going forward?
Well, look, we need comprehensive immigration reform, long overdue. We're talking about immigration in the context of this bill on the basis of what we can get done with a simple majority in the Senate. Because the way that these bills are moving in the Senate, particularly this Build Back Better Act, is using a process called reconciliation that requires only 50 of the senators to agree. And the benefit is that, it's very difficult to get 10 Republicans to agree to a lot of things. But with regard to immigration, it limits what we can do because reconciliation is only designed, I don't want to go too far into the weeds, but I'll just say, it's only designed for things that are directly related to taxation and revenue. And that's where we've run into some challenges trying to get immigration related policies into the Build Back Better Act. But we're not giving up by any stretch of the imagination. I know that my Senate colleagues, many of my House colleagues, working very, very hard. The CHC working very, very hard on that. And look, I would like to see something more akin to what we did with the Dream and Promise Act, making sure we take care of our agricultural community and our dreamers, our TPS recipients, all of the folks that are working hard, that are contributing positively to our society, to our economy. I was very honored that the first year that I got to bring a guest to the State of the Union address, I brought a dreamer from UC San Diego. She was a senior at the time at UC San Diego. And I know from our community that our dreamers, they have the same aspirations that I mentioned at the beginning of my own grandparents, where they're here, they're young, they're working hard, they want a better life. And in many cases, they know of no other country really because they came here so young. My mom likes to call her parents, my grandparents, the dreamers of their day. And so I hope in Congress we do right by the dreamers of today.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to those steps happening. And we also appreciate your support for local candidates like Cipriano Vargas that are sort of in the ground every day out there serving those local communities and that.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Been a great discussion.
Yeah, and once things go back to normal and we have our Latino Book and Family Festivals in person, we will certainly be sending out an invite to you.
Thank you so much, Kirk. Great to be with you.
Thank you very, very much. Okay.
All right, so thank you for staying here